It's Friday, December 5th. I'm Jim Check with Now Media. With me, Ian Burns, our managing editor out there in the nation's capital. And I understand it's like cold out there.
Horrifically cold. It's
Well,
not nice.
minus 26, did you say?
With wind chill, that's what it was, yeah, this morning when I was out.
Well, it's a lot better here than that. I'll tell you that for nothing. Traffic moving nicely too. We got lots on the really big show as usual. Really, really big show. Liberals tout jobs growth, but the reality is weak. It's all about energy with many, many exclamation marks. Carney in Washington. Who cares? Liberals look to block more accountability with censorship. X rises to the top in Canada. Oh, Joe Lee. Ian loves my headlines. Federal managers feast on the taxpayer. Liberals try to sell the same old lie. Is Quebec the first to leave Canada? Is EB concerned? Trump, the man of peace, strikes again. U.S. economy touted to have huge growth. Kids come first in America. Putin with big splash in India. And are we done with cancel culture in the United States? Because we're sure not done with it here. All that and a lot more on the really big show. You just said that Carney just was shaking hands with President Trump.
Yeah, the big orange fella. But sorry, I just have to add, you mentioned that I like when you read out the headlines. One of the reasons I like that is that it reminds me very strongly of Alex Trebek when he would read out the categories in Jeopardy. It's like very, very similar. I don't know if anyone else has noticed that, but it's quite comforting. Makes me feel like I'm about to watch Jeopardy.
There you go. And I'll take, is this real news for 500? It is. It's best news you're going to find on the interwebs. We'll check in on the CBC and see if they're covering half the stories we're covering any of the stories we're covering today, for that matter. Is Carney on CPAC, or where is he at? Maybe we can cut away to that if anything happens, if anything worthwhile is happening, other than...
I mean, if it's the feed is coming from NBC, I'm watching it on TSN, but it's all over. Maybe he has it on his Twitter, actually. I'll have a look.
Yeah, you poke around.
Carney likes to, yeah.
Let's kick it off, though. The Liberals, of course, touting jobs. Here's Melanie Joly. You know, she's always in the running for the Fool of the Day award. Canada's economy keeps moving forward. In November, we added 54,000 new jobs. This is proof Canadian workers and industries are driving growth and resilience. How you say this in one day, and the next day it's as horrible. But if you look under the hood, let's look at the map of Canada, though. Let's take a look here. So the overall unemployment number has fallen to 6.5. Which is good news. But a lot of this growth is being driven by part-time jobs, which is not good, right? This is like kind of what you would call a kind of a fake economy. If a lot of the job growth is being driven by part-time jobs, that's not good. But, you know, like 54,000 jobs in November, and again, driven by part-time jobs. Workers aged 15 to 24, main beneficiaries, I mean, that's probably likely retailers gearing up for the Christmas season with part-time jobs. In British Columbia, the unemployment rate fell 0.2 percentage points to 6.4. Kelowna, though, holy cow, what's going on in Kelowna? 11% unemployment, up from 9.3. So Kelowna is in trouble here. Kamloops at 8.8. That's down from 9.6. And Victoria at 4.1, the leading government employer. They seem to be doing well. And Kelowna, the unemployment rate, the highest among all cities tracked by Stats Canada in November. So Kelowna, again, making the top of the list, and not in a good way.
And nothing about this was expected. This jobs report was not expected. There was an expectation that the unemployment rate would increase and that jobs might be lost. You know, all the genius economists, all the Mark Carneys out there thought that was their prediction. Because, you know, they do that Reuters poll of economists, but also RBC separately. All the big boys reckoned it was going to be a miserable jobs report. And it comes out like this. That's a surprise. But also Kelowna, all this talk about tariffs and everything, I'm not sure you can remember. A mere 5 months ago, people were talking about Kelowna as almost uniquely insulated from all of this. That Kelowna and BC in general were gonna do a lot better. somehow now Kelowna's into double figures, worst census metropolitan area, like urban area in Canada for employment. So, but I'm not entirely sure what this is. It's quite hard to, because it doesn't tell you what industries. It doesn't drill down that to that level of specifics. But I mean, I'm sure we can commission our beloved Steve to investigate.
Yeah, full-time employment is down to a 3-month low, though, and that's the troubling part. The part-time jobs aren't driving a strong economy, and that's the truth of the matter. And then part-time workers hit the highest level on record. Nearly 1 in 5 Canadians now working part-time, but they still get counted in the employment figures. So part-time jobs, not driving it. Some people taking extra part-time jobs as well. We don't think the strong pace of hiring in recent months will be sustained and expect layoffs, and we're starting to see that. We're seeing mills close. We're seeing Algoma steel layoffs. So you're going to see some of those big manufacturing jobs really start to hit this. And those are high-paying full-time jobs being replaced by low-paying part-time jobs for the most part. Most time, part-time jobs are low-paying jobs, and entry-level jobs for that matter. And that's why we're seeing that growth in the youth jobs there. And then Gavin Dew shared with us some stuff there. Today's job report shows BC unemployment rates dipping slightly from 6.6 to 6.4. But it's not really having that much effect. You have an opportunity recession, more anxiety, less opportunity. And youth unemployment remains high in BC at 12.5%, and women are being hit harder at every age. Women employment sits at 6.7%, and 14.2% for women aged 15 to 24. And then like I said, the big closure, Domtar. That's 350 full-time, high-paying jobs, and that's going to hurt as well, right? Those are the ones that really hurt. And Bring Forest Products announced 3-week shutdown yesterday, starting December 11th, affecting 75 workers in PG, Vanderhoof, and Houston. That's the scary parts. In like Algoma Steel, 1,000 workers there. That's coming in mid-December, and then we're seeing that another, I think, an announcement in Alberta today that one of the mills in Alberta is going to curtail operations indefinitely in one of their sawmills. So, again, the Liberals touting this as a great thing, but if you look under the hood, these are not good numbers. These are not good numbers. It's just another Liberal tout. Why don't they be honest with us and tell us what's really going on? This is driven by part-time jobs. Part-time jobs over the last 3 months is what's really been driving an increase there. And part-time employment is not how you drive a healthy economy.
And also unemployment rate of 6.5% isn't good either, is it? But it's going to be celebrated as though this, combined with that GDP quota that they got so excited about, this is going to be presented as evidence that Carney's working his magic kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Why not be honest with people? But honesty in short supply. Honesty in short supply. The second part here, and then we're going to put up this chart again because this is really important. I'm going to drive this home. It's like driving the bus. We're going to drive this home so people understand it. The Liberal policies, the NDP policies don't understand this. Maybe we can convert some people to convince some people that this is what it's all about. The West has a power problem. We're going to hear from a few different people on why this matters so much. Look at Canada there. See that little red line on the bottom? That's Canada.
That's not the kind of line you'd want to see on in hospital on a machine, a heartbeat monitor, and that's not what you'd want to see either when it comes to energy capacity.
Here's Chamath, a former Canadian. Let's hear what Chamath has to say. Now a very successful investor in the United States and a very sharp guy as well. We're going to get it.
Is not a climate change issue. Energy is a national security issue. And everybody cherry picks a chart. Let me show this little nuclear chart going up and to the right for China. Wake up, people. The real accurate chart, if you want to be on top of this issue, is what are they investing in? They're investing in every form of energy production. Why? Because if push comes to shove in the future, China cannot be reliant on anybody for energy. It is the same in the United States. Okay? So that's number one. That's why they're investing in everything. So it's inaccurate to cherry pick the thing that helps you reinforce your bias. The real conversation is the strategic gameplay of what's happening on the field. That's number one. Number two, in the United States, my fundamental belief is that the utilities are broken. Because no matter how cheap you make the making of the energy, and I really don't care how you make it, you have to spend an inordinate amount of money transmitting it and distributing it. And all of that indirection is what the average consumer pays. So if you are smart, eventually you will say to yourself, I'll just make it myself. My belief is that the largest utility in the United States will be a distributed utility of homeowners.
We talked about this earlier in the week. If China could, it would just get 1 million people to ride bikes to generate electricity. They will use any form and all forms of energy. They lead in so many different aspects. You see in the chart there, they lead in nuclear, they lead in solar, they lead in almost everything. They fired up coal plants where we're shutting them down. They just use energy to the nth degree. And then we're going to hear from another person here on why energy is so important. But what Chamath says is what Iain said the other day. Energy is everything. And we say that over and over and over on this show. Why don't the Liberals and the NDP get it? They're so freaked out about one pipeline, so freaked out. And they want to keep the resources in the ground. If China had what we had, they would be probably like even further ahead.
Oh, yeah. But it's just like I was saying, minus 26 with wind chill earlier today in Ottawa. Yeah, here I am, forearms, it's like 22 degrees or whatever it is in this room. It's like, that's fossil fuels. We have fossil fuels to thank for that, and this is the same across Canada. And it's not just keeping you warm. It's more like what we're doing now, you and I, rather than being out, rather than going out and tilling the fields or whatever. We're here sitting, having a, some might say intellectual conversation, which is a luxury. Only a tiny minority of people throughout history have had this privilege. And that's all down to energy. Because in the past, you had to put all the energy you could find, which was human muscles and animal muscles, into the fields just to stay alive, just to keep what sort of basic level of civilization was possible going. Now with fossil fuels, we can live such better lives, it all comes down to energy. And I say fossil fuels because it's not possible to do it with any other sorts of fuel. I mean, hydro is kind of like a strange exception, and nuclear, but really fossil fuels it's the foundation of our way of life. And it does become rather tiresome to hear them being spoken of as though, like I said yesterday, as though it was a kind of disease or a cancer that had to be kind of urgently extracted from the body to save the body. It's quite the opposite.
I mean, I'm a firm believer in solar. I have it on my roof. I'm a firm believer in EVs, and I drive one over a couple of years, and it's all forms of energy that matter. It's all forms of energy that matter, and that's what China's doing, all forms of energy, because energy is so important. It's the fossil fuels, it's the new energy, it's everything you can make energy out of. And small modular reactors is another gift that's coming for Canada, but you're not allowed in BC. And many things, it's all about energy. Energy is what makes it work. And it's not, there's an argument going on in our comments here. It's not about just green versus fossil. It's all of it, all of it, all of it. And use the energy that we have, a lot of it is fossil fuels, some of the largest world supplies of it, sell it to other people so we can invest and create more renewable energies as well. It's just everything is about energy. And here's another proof of that. This is Jensen Huang, one of the most consequential people on the planet right now. The company that he runs, NVIDIA, has a market cap twice that of Canada's GDP, and everybody wants his chips. And he's going to lay this out. This is a bit of a longer clip because it's so important, because it lays it out in layers of what's important for the future. Let's listen in.
Are we really losing?
It was a very good headline.
It was a great headline, yeah.
And it apparently caught a lot of attention. As you know, with headlines, the disclaimer part, the foundation part was left out of the headline. But the way to think about that is, let me just handicap it right now. If you look at AI and go back to the first thing that we said, AI is a 5-layer cake. Let's just always simplify. It's not quite this simplistic, but let's simplify AI into a 5-layer cake. Energy, chips, infrastructure, models, and applications. Okay? And let's handicap it across from bottom to top. At the lowest level, energy, China has twice the amount of energy we have as a nation.
I want to ask about that.
Twice as much energy as we have as a nation, and our economy is larger than theirs. Makes no sense to me. We also know that one of the most important initiatives, one of the most important policies of this administration, and that was the first thing that President Trump said to me when we met, is, listen, we need to reindustrialize America. We need to onshore manufacturing again. We need to help America make things again. It's going to create jobs. That part of the economy has been offshored, and completely gutted the United States. We need to bring that back, and he needs my help to do so. And so that entire sector of the economy is missing. And however, without energy, how do we build chip plants, computer system plants, and these AI data centers? We call them AI factories. We're building simultaneously 3 different types of factories in the United States: chip factories, supercomputer factories, and AI factories. They all require energy, every single one of them.
Yeah.
And so on the one hand, we want to reindustrialize the United States. How do you do that without energy?
That's
so
good.
the fact that we vilify
That's good. The fact that we vilify energy, that's what we do here. And with the Biden administration was doing the exact same thing in the United States. They vilified energy, and they were going on with this green stuff. And I'm not against the green stuff. I think it's great. But why are you vilifying energy? Energy is important. You know, the Canada talks about, Evan Solomon says that Canada leads in AI. He just laid it out for you. Energy is the foundation. Chamath laid it out for you. Everybody with half a brain can lay it out for you. It's all about energy. If you want to industrialize your nation, how did we get industry? How did we get through the Industrial Revolution? You said it in England. What was it? What was the form of energy that brought England out of the Dark Ages? I think it was coal.
Well, it's
Black
all
gold.
coal. Yeah.
And
There was a little bit of hydro as well, but I mean, marginal, tiny compared to the contribution of coal. But it's not just prosperity. We're talking about great power politics here, aren't we? Because we're talking about China, and he's talking about how much more energy China's producing. He asked the question, and this has been asked many times, why is it that the British went to, for example, India and colonized India and conquered India rather than the other way around? Why didn't the Indians come around Africa up into the Atlantic and conquer Britain? Possibly the central reason to that is that the British had energy. They had vastly more energy than the Indians could access and produce. They were still living in a pre-industrial, pre-fossil fuels environment. So obviously, if a people can generate 10, 20, 100 times more energy than you because they have more sophisticated and efficient means of doing so, they're gonna slap you. They're gonna come and take your stuff off you. They might conquer you. They might colonize you. You know, it's like you don't want to mess around with energy, and that's obviously what the Americans have completely figured that out. And like we've discussed before, they know that there's no backstop. They are the backstop. Like there's nobody else after them. There's nobody to protect them. So if they don't have enough energy to compete, it'll all collapse. Whereas in the sillier countries in the world like Germany, and I'm sad to say Canada, there's always America to protect you. There's always the granddaddy sort of sitting there in the back. So I mean, maybe we take it a little bit less seriously in countries like Canada, and that's ultimately and obviously to our detriment, isn't it?
We squander our wealth and our prosperity, and many people go hungry in this nation because of it. And there's arguments going on right now that, and our comments here about it's all about green and climate change. That we squander our prosperity because of comments like that. We are fools, basically fools. The Americans have figured it out. It's all about energy. It's all about energy. And we should be using the energy we have and the resources that we have beneath our feet to get us to a better place. I mean, that's going to happen naturally. but to squander what we have and look at where we're at, and just this nonsense is not getting us anywhere. But anyway, it's all about energy. We got a couple more clips here. We're going to pass by that Jensen Huang one there. He just says basically it's all about energy. I mean, we need more energy than you can believe to move into this new AI age, and it's it's even what Europe is trying to do, protect itself from wars, and that if you want to manufacture weapons, it takes energy. Everything takes energy. Yeah, I mean, Ian, you were just living in the United Kingdom. You had to choose what time to turn on your thermostat because you couldn't afford to run it longer.
Yeah, and that's like lots of little personal tragedies like that going on in England. But then imagine the industrial decisions that are being made, and it's not just England; it's also Germany. Look at all the companies in Germany, like that sort of foundation of the German economy. Look at all of them who've moved to America. That's completely about energy. If your energy is so expensive, you can't compete. You can't have an industry. But I mean, yeah, so it's both sides. It's your economy crashes, but also your people are miserable. And they're sat around in like 10 sweaters trying to stay warm in their own home. It's just, the worst thing of all, though, is that it's a choice. It would be sort of understandable if we were just cavemen sat around a fire or something like that. Then it would be like, oh, okay, well, this is our destiny kind of thing. There's nothing we can do about it. But to be in the 21st century and to know that this is just purely a choice, it's because of decisions made by ideological people who, they are extremists who are not really connected to what the majority of their population wants.
Can we put
that makes it all the worse, really.
Can we put that chart back up? The West has a power problem. This is for that one there. This is for our friend Lightning Rod. Yeah, I have solar on my roof too, Lightning Rod. It's great, and it contributes. But if you see China is not living off of green energy. China is living off all forms of energy. All forms.
I would also say we don't have this chart, but somebody was going on about guns, germs, and steel earlier, which is like it's a book about what we're talking about, really, like how countries develop. Also books by, noted communist Eric Hobsbawm. You can read books by a lot of different historians, but you can see a chart like this, almost exactly like this, but instead of that being China, it would be Britain. And the frame of reference, the timeline would be the 19th century or the 18th century. It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence that this exact chart will be replicated from 200 years ago, but with Britain going up and China stagnant. And what happened to China? It was carved up. The British, the French, the Americans, everybody got a piece of the pie because China was just a stagnant, do-nothing empire that couldn't compete with the Western powers, which were fueled by efficient energy. It couldn't be any more serious. It's deadly serious.
It's all about energy. Canada has lots of it. Canada does not have the political will to tap it, though. And we're look at all this argument and the Team Canada falling apart because we can't even agree to a pipeline to the West Coast. Shameful.
Which is just, that should have been built 30, 40 years ago. It's like, what the hell? We should be thinking about like pipeline 3.0 at this point, but instead we're still talking about things that should have been finished decades ago. That is such a bad sign, isn't it? If you're diagnosing the patient here, your eyebrows are raising there. It's like, you still haven't even built that.
This chart, pin it on your fridge, print it off, hand it out to the people that start screaming at you about climate change, stick it somewhere, pull it out of your pocket, throw it down on the table and say, this is all you need to know. It's all about energy, all forms of energy. Anyway, Carney, he's heading off. Well, he's there, did the handshake. Anything else going on, or just the FIFA handshake there? Again, who cares?
There was a pat on the, Trump patted him on the shoulder because they're standing next to each other in the gods, looking down. Yeah. But they were saying something quite far away. You can't really see exactly what they're doing, but there was some chit chat going on and some patronizing little shoulder pats.
just a warning here for Lightning Rod. don't get into calling people names in that, because then we will have to mute you for today, because starting with pedophile and gangster and something that's not acceptable. So let's just keep it to the topic. And if you're starting to lose an argument, either just go silent, but don't get into that stuff, right? None of that, or you will be silenced for being abusive. And we don't silence a lot of people.
Well, you just can't call
like
people a pedo, because they might sue you, as well. Even if it happens on YouTube. I know that might sound ridiculous, but you can get done for defamation if you call somebody a pedo and they're not a pedo, as Elon Musk learned.
We like you. Just don't start pulling out the old names like the liberal thing and just start naming people and start label gunning people, right? And that's not true either. There you go. So just stop. Just stop it.
Convicted pedophile. No.
Just
Epstein, maybe. That's it. Perhaps who you're thinking of. He was a convicted pedo.
Anyway, we won't be censored. This is MP Michelle Rempel Garner. And this is the MPs, the liberal MPs, don't like some of the clips coming out of committee hearings, because they feel like they're getting attacked from. Well, I got news for you. Stop doing stupid things. People won't say, get mad at you. MPs will not be censored in scrutinizing federal executives or management of immigration. And that her remarks followed a formal protest by Deputy Minister that criticism at committee hearings made them unsafe to testify. Stop doing stupid things. This is ridiculous. This is what this government, this liberal government, refuses to be held accountable. And they do things that anger people, and then they're saying, oh, well, the people shouldn't get angry at us. That's part of the job, right? People get to voice their concerns back at you.
And stop with the gaslighting. Stop using that verb. Should be banned. Politicians should not be allowed to talk about being unsafe and things. Just shut up, man. Shut. I'm gonna blow my top, but shut up. Stop using that sort of language. Stop using therapy language. You are the ruling class. Can you imagine it being a peasant and the nobles come up to you and it's like, I'm feeling unsafe, and use therapy language? Shut up and rule. And if you can't rule, get out of the way and let somebody who can rule do it instead.
This is actual one of the problems with the Liberal Party. They do not want to be held accountable, and they will use whatever they can to stop being held accountable. And this is a problem. This is the problem. They are the threat to democracy. And when they're saying they want committee hearings censored. Why? So you don't have to air your dirty laundry? Ridiculous. Absolutely.
Well, just the obvious truth, the unvarnished truth is that they do have a problem with transparency. We see it every single day. Every day that we talk about politics in this country and governance in this country, we, not by our choosing, we're not looking for it, but we are drawn every single time to the Liberals refusing to release information. They don't like doing it. Surely that's evident now, even to Liberal partisans. Although I suppose they would probably describe it as being a bit cautious or something, or they'd use language that sounds more positive. But it's undeniable that they're not very forthcoming with information.
Well, we can show you tons of examples of this. We won't be censored. Well, here you go. The EU just fired a 120 million euro shot at X, and it backfired immediately. They slapped Elon Musk's X with a 120 million euro fine, the first ever punishment under this digital services, because Elon refuses to censor. And they got a reaction already. And who'd they get the reaction from? J.D. Vance.
So Vance a lot.
Sir Vance a lot, and said, nope, not going to happen. J.D. Vance, rumors swirling, you will fine X hundreds of millions of dollars. And the Americans came out, we put that in yesterday, the Americans come out and saying, if you censor or go after American platforms, then you will feel repercussions for those actions.
And there's been, this is hardly new, is it, or an exception especially from Vance and this whole administration. They are not going to tolerate this kind of thing from Europe, and ultimately,
Canada,
they're the daddy, so they're gonna win the argument. It's almost like one of those arguments between a parent and a child, where it's like the parent just says this is my house, I pay for you, I'm your parent. It's when it comes down to it, that's what the Americans can say. And at that point, we've seen already several times since Trump's second presidency started, the Europeans fold. They always fold because they are the child in this relationship, and they'll fold again on this. I'm certain of it.
I'm going to have John Carpay on later today from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. We're talking about this kind of stuff. And if Canada would probably be doing more of this, like listen to in the committee hearings, the Liberals don't want this out there in the public. They work for the public. They forget who they work for. They're voted for. They are not gods. They are not gods. They must answer to the public.
And Mr. Rodney now, I have to, he's gone off on one. He said to deny that Mr. Trump is not a convicted criminal. I mean, I don't think you meant to write that. But anyway, you're saying that we've said he's not a convicted criminal. That's not what I'm talking about. You said he was a paedophile. There's no evidence that he's a paedophile. Yeah. I mean, there aren't even accusations, as far as I'm aware, that he's a paedophile. Paedophile is, a child rapist or something like that. That's not what Donald Trump is. You're talking about those felonies for whatever it was, campaign donations or whatever. That's not being a paedophile. What are you talking about?
You know what I find, though, is when people start losing arguments about energy and different things, they start bringing out the label gun. The label gun. Now media is conservative. Now media is biased. Well, no, now media is trying to tell you the truth. It's all about energy. You don't like it. That's the problem. Talk about the energy thing instead of just pulling out the label gun. Label, 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 label. Anyway.
But also, at least get it accurate.
Anyway.
What's the point of calling Donald Trump? What is the point of calling him a paedophile? It's like, call anybody a paedophile.
Nonsense.
You have to get it right. Get the name calling right, at least.
Nonsense. X. Uh-oh. Now the leading platform for news and magazines in Canada. I said this a long time ago. X is where it happens. We saw that yesterday. John Rustad announced his stepping down from leadership. Where did we find out first? We found out on X. He changed his profile. Kamala Harris conceded the election. Where did we find that out first? X. It all happens on X. X is where it's at. X marks the spot. And of course, there are people that don't like that. But that's the truth of the matter. That is the truth of the matter.
Trump's now on stage with the World Cup, if anybody's interested. Looking quite funny with a medal around his neck.
We're not going to get into debates on Trump's convictions, Lightning Rod. Just leave it alone. We're done. So you can talk madness all you want, but we're not going to engage in it. There you go. Here's our friend, Melanie Joly. Let's listen to her.
We've been working with the company to make sure that they were adapting their business model. And that is why we've provided this fall $400 million to the company, and Ontario also provided $100 million. And the goal was to make sure that the company would get through these months while they were working on pivoting and adapting their entire operations. We've been working with them also on a new beam steel plant and also a new plate steel plant in order to support the housing sector and also the defense sector. And we think that through these investments, there can be more jobs that come back to Algoma, and which will be the case for many steel plants across the country. We also think that our Buy Canada policy is working. Algoma has now received orders from Irving Shipyards and also from Seaspan, two important shipyards across the country.
You mean the shipyards that you didn't give the BC Ferries contract to? Is that the shipyard you're talking about, Seaspan? The one that you gave it to China? Is that the one we're talking about? Buy Canada? Is that the one? Buy Canada? Odd.
Yet again, though, she looks so flustered, doesn't she? She looks so hopeless. I mean, it's almost got to the point now where she needs to be put out of her misery, doesn't she? It's becoming painful to watch.
This Stellantis thing is absolutely one of the biggest scandals going on. They said read the contract, didn't read the contract, and Stellantis saying they've lived up to their end of the deal. And now, here's Melanie Joly saying they served them. Let's listen to this clip here.
Federal government is escalating its fight with Stellantis. Ottawa has put the automaker in its legal crosshairs over the company's decision to move some production to the U.S.
I'm formally announcing that we're serving Stellantis with a notice of default under the contracts. When it comes to protecting auto jobs, we will not let these industries down.
That's Industry Minister Mélanie Joly making the announcement yesterday at the House of Commons International Trade Committee. Stellantis said in October that it's scrapping plans to build a model of Jeep at its plant in Brampton, Ontario. That decision has affected some 3,000 workers. The federal government has paid Stellantis more than $220 million in recent years to upgrade 2 of its Canadian plants. Minister Joly says those funding contracts include job guarantees for Brampton. Stellantis says it is not in breach of contract and that it hasn't shuttered the Brampton plant.
Can we have the contracts, Mélanie Joly, without redactions? You said that they asked for redactions. They said they didn't. So cough them up. Let's take a look at what CBC's covering, though, because are they covering the Stellantis stuff? Or are they covering any of the other stuff that we're going to cover today? What do they got going on? FIFA, Carney and Trump chit-chat on sidelines. That's a nice headline for you, chit-chat. What does that mean? Who cares? Who cares? Here's an attack piece on RFK Jr. What do we else we got? Canada's unemployment rate fell to 6.5, a steep drop. What did they put in there? Driven by part-time jobs. Don't like that, hey? I don't see it.
No.
I don't see the scandals. Do you see them? Odd. Can't find them.
Certainly see RFK Jr. scandal that they're trying to push there.
Lots of FIFA stuff. I'm sure that helps the people losing their jobs, their good-paying jobs. I'm sure that's helpful, right? All the FIFA stuff. Nothing.
Yeah.
Just nothing. Just
Somali
nothing.
communities feel unsafe, it says, in Canada.
In Canada, yeah.
After Trump's tirade. I don't really understand that. Don't know what they have to fear in Canada.
Here's some reaction from Stellantis here. We'll just put this in. Why not, hey?
One thing that I found fascinating last week at committee, we had the deputy minister come in, insinuate that the minister hadn't read the contract. He said everybody at the table, though, had read the contract, but then later he said he didn't read the contract. So I'm curious on your end, how many people have read the fully unredacted contract?
I'm going to say 5 or 6 have reviewed the entire agreement internally. Yeah, not that many have read through the entire agreement.
Okay, and then how many people would have access to even just partial elements of the contract?
Internally, in terms of claims or in terms of legal review, there would be those departments that would focus on their sections of the agreement.
So fair to say a couple dozen people probably at least, maybe more, would have access to at least certain portions of this contract internally?
Potentially.
Have you guys entered into a dispute resolution process with the federal government?
We have been in conversation with the minister, with the department, with respect to moving forward on a plan for Brampton.
It's your view that you are not in breach of the contract. So I mean, if the minister's saying you are, you're saying that you're not. I mean, how do we square that?
No, we do not believe that we are in breach of the contract. We are honoring our commitments.
Release the contract, Mélanie Joly, because I mean they're not worried about it. Release them. Let's have a look. You know, there's probably people in the public here that would read them. I'd read the contract. You know what I mean? Like,
definitely.
I'm willing to read the contract, Mélanie.
But that might be the best
that
this government can hope for, is to like make it open source and just try and get the whole of the country behind them, because
why don't they?
Clearly aren't managing it by themselves. And once again, we see somebody from the corporate world who's clearly intelligent and running rings around politicians. You know, it's you see that too often. And that means that we lose whenever that scenario plays out. We lose. The country loses.
Well, you know, the bureaucrats, like I said, they love to feast at the trough now. This is from Holly Donald Blacklock's. Cabinet last year approved an 84% increase in number of federal managers paid more than $150K a year. How you doing? How you doing? I think that was Friends, right? How you doing? It coincided with the public statements by the finance minister that these are hard times for Canadians. Well, not those Canadians.
It's kind of amazing as well. The funny thing is, they can thrive and prosper in the uncertainty, the lack of clarity about what it is they do. In many cases, what these jobs are, man, like they're just time servers. They've just been there for ages. They don't even, they're not worth it. I'm sorry to say, guys.
This story is on CBC. We didn't see it though. Maybe it's coming later today. Number of executives paid from 150 to just under 200,000, a buck under 200,000. Last year grew from 7,200 to 12,971, an 80% increase. Executives pay more than 200 grand. Ready for this? More than 200 grand. This is federal bureaucrats grew from 860 to 994. Executives paid more than 250. Ready for this one? Nearly tripled. Tripled. From 88 to 220 managers. That's what federal bureaucrats are getting paid. These same people that don't want to release documents, don't want to share, you know what I mean? They don't want to be held accountable. They redact everything. They don't want to read contracts either. Like, who's reading the contracts? Like I said, I'm willing to read the contract for free. Send it over.
As a patriotic duty.
Yeah, I'll read it for free. The Inquirer also counted 82 executives paid more than $300,000 a year over the year increase of 44%. 3 managers were paid $400,000 compared to the one previous year. And we've seen the ones that Carney hired recently. They're all in the 500 plus range for these new cabinets that he opened up. Build Canada Homes. What were the other ones that they opened up recently? The projects, the projects office. Everybody making money.
Procurement, defense procurement.
Yeah.
Somebody's pointed out that woman that we were talking about from Stellantis was actually a MPP, she was in the Ontario provincial government. So that just makes it even worse, doesn't it? Because she was obviously bright. She did her stint in politics, learned, got the network, learned how it all works, then went over to work for the corporate world to screw over the Canadian taxpayer using her superior intelligence and knowledge. While we sit here with Melanie Joly. Melanie Joly is our champion who goes into the ring.
I guarantee the Stellantis lawyers read the contract. I guarantee that they read those contracts. I guarantee it that they read the contract. I guarantee the person
I'd say there's a possibility that they wrote them.
I guarantee the person that signed the bottom of the contract for Stellantis read the contract. Where it turns out, whose signature is on the bottom of the contract? I'm assuming that it was, the person in charge of the cabinet there. Whose name is at the bottom of that contract? Ask them if they read the contract. Because if they didn't, that's financial malfeasance if they didn't even read the contract that they signed and obligated the Canadian taxpayer. I don't know. Is that on CBC?
It's like, what's the fiduciary responsibility or something, isn't it? That's what it would be classified as.
Well, hey, no coffee time for a month. Managers at Shared Services Canada, the federal IT department, recommended canceling coffee breaks for a month due to Ramadan. Access to Information records show estimated 100 of, just under 10,000 employees identified as Muslim, though not all were observant. Avoid scheduling lunches or informal coffee breaks and chats, as this could unintentionally put your Muslim colleagues in an uncomfortable position. And that was Ray Edwards, then Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer. He wrote that in a staff email. Managers should avoid making assumptions. No coffee for you. Absolutely ridiculous.
I mean, why is there a Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer anyway?
How much do you think he gets paid? How much do you think he gets paid?
I think it probably six fat figures, maybe beginning with a 2 or a 3. Maybe more than that. God, maybe it begins with a 4.
Challenging for Fool of the Day is our friend Gary. Let's listen in to what Gary has to say.
Sonia West, Sanja TV, FYI Media. My question is for the Minister of Public Safety. Criminals, by definition, do not follow the law, but the assault-style firearms compensation program asks them to surrender their guns. How will this stop organized crime and extortion, and is it worth taxpayers spending hundreds of millions if it mostly affects law-abiding owners?
We are taking a number of very important steps to get guns off our streets. It starts with criminal code amendments that Minister Fraser is putting through the House as we speak. It starts with Bill C-12 with respect to a stronger border, along with our $1.3 billion investments at the border. We're adding 1,000 new RCMP and CBSA personnel to ensure that our borders are more secure, and we tackle the issues around transnational organized crime that works to make sure that guns are off our street. The assault-style firearms compensation program is an additional measure that we have been working on. It prohibits 2,500 firearms from our streets. It essentially are assault-style firearms that are meant to cause maximum harm to individuals. These are not the type of firearms that are used for hunting or other types of leisure activity. These are lethal weapons that we're taking off our streets. In the context of all the things that we're doing, what we want to ensure is those who have licensed firearms are able to get compensated for firearms that they're unable to use in their future. So that is essentially what we're doing, compensating them and making sure that they're not out of pocket. And it is a program that is needed in the context of all the work that we're doing around making sure guns are off our streets.
He is way out of his depth. He has no idea what he's saying. He is way, way, way out of his depth. And how he still has his job after that leaked audio, it just shows you how much the Carney Liberals care about what the Canadian people think, because this guy should not be there. And this whole program, well, I can't even remember the numbers now. They escape me. How many millions of dollars have been spent with no guns already turned in? It's absolutely ludicrous. And then we talked about it, where all the guns are coming through. They're coming through sea cans, like full of drugs and guns. We've interviewed people. They're full of guns and drugs. And then they're asking the regular licensed gun owner to turn over their guns when they're doing nothing, really nothing about the illegal guns. It's absolutely just a waste of Canadian taxpayer dollars.
And that same template is applied areas, isn't it, where you kind of persecute law-abiding people for no reason, while the real problem just goes on, uninterrupted. But I also just want to say, in relation to Ananda Sangri, dear precious Rodney ally, friend and ally, Mr. Rodney, said to me, "Why did I flee my country?" I assume, obviously, you talk about England, there, aren't you? I didn't flee England, but also, what you say, my country. I'm a Canadian citizen, so I mean, Canada's my country these days. It's where I live, and you probably would gather that based on how I speak about Britain. But also, I just want to know, you say that about me. Would you also say that about Ananda Sangri then? When you're talking about Ananda Sangri, do you refer to him as a Sri Lankan? And would you ask him, why did you flee Sri Lanka, your country? You know, it's a very selective application of that logic, I think, where because you obviously don't like what I say or what we say, that you try and sort of marginalize me as a foreigner. Is Ananda Sangri a foreigner then? I mean, you're going to have to answer that question. You need consistency there.
Well, another one. Housing, the fees, a housing barrier. Municipal development charges pose a significant constraint to housing affordability. And that's what CMHC said. I mean, that's, again, no-brainer. And then remember the tout, 500,000 homes a year, the Liberals said. 500,000 homes a year. The PBO office says more like 26,000 over 5 years. That's a big difference, isn't it? 500 times 5 is 2.5 million versus 26,000. It's like 1% of what their percentage, right? Research and market intelligence shows this cost may be passed on to homeowners. No, S-H-I Sherlock. There you go. Like, there's so many fees. It's absolutely crazy. Development charges per apartment unit range from just under 9,000 in Montreal to 21,000 in White Rock, 39,000 in Ottawa, 45,000 in Langley, 54,000 in Burlington, and 62,000 in Coquitlam, 77,000 in Pickering, and 97,000 in Brampton, and 130,000 in Toronto. and up to 180,600 in some places, just for fees.
Just to grease the pockets of the city so that you can be granted permission.
So the Liberal budget, the Liberal touts, and how they got elected, they're going to build Canada Home. They created this whole agency, and that person heading up that agency makes over 500 grand a year. Over 500 grand. I think it's in the 6 number. And they're supposed to build 500,000 homes a year. And here's the PBO's office saying, no, you're going to build 26,000 homes in 5 years. And now here's CMHC saying, not going to happen. Cabinet has targeted the construction of 3.9 million homes beyond ordinary construction rates to restore affordability, a level that will require minimum 650,000 starts a year. And that's not going to happen. We expect housing starts to slow down. Urban starts last year numbered 227,697. Canada has never built more than 273,000 homes in a single year, and that record was set in 1976. And yet we're supposed to believe all these touts. I don't think
that was a time when the population was growing quickly.
That was young population.
And they needed to build the houses. Same's happening now, but we're not building the houses. And yet people still deny that there's any relationship between this immigration binge that the Liberals have gone on and high prices for houses. People still deny that.
We looked on CBC earlier. Was this on there? Was this story on there? Did you see that on CBC at all? They're talking about what the PBO says, 26,000 homes over 5 years, not 500,000 homes a year?
I wonder what percentage of CBC's audience doesn't have a home. I would say it's minuscule, frankly.
Anyway, here's the TC Energy CEO delivering a report to the White House on how to boost oil and gas infrastructure. You know what TC Energy is? Does anybody know? Want to take a stab at it? TCI, he was in D.C. this week after being commissioned to write a report for the Trump administration designed to help the U.S. build new oil and gas infrastructure. Why wouldn't you do that here in Canada? Francois Poirier said the U.S. faces the same challenge as Canada, explaining, we would like to see permitting times get shorter, a surge in energy demand driven by widespread electrification, the resurgence of domestic manufacturing, and proliferation of data centers, and strategic expansion of liquefied natural gas exports is colliding with aging and limited infrastructure. But they're taking it serious. We, on the other hand, continue to argue about a pipeline for years.
Yeah, they're taking it deadly seriously, as we discussed earlier. The Americans are really, I mean, they've got to prove it. They've got to actually do something, but they are talking the talk. Whereas, yeah, I mean, this just sums it up, doesn't it? That they bring down somebody from a Canadian company to tell them how to build out their oil and gas infrastructure.
But
and the White House is like eagerly lapping it up.
We're not using them. We're just like, yeah, you don't want that stuff here. Who cares? Go to the United States, right?
Well, they keep saying, don't they, that that guy, Chris Wright, I think it is, who's in charge of energy for Donald Trump, like, he's going around and they love him. You know, all these companies, they're so excited to finally have somebody in the White House or in a powerful government that's actually pro-energy. You keep hearing all of these positive reviews that he's getting.
And here's a little, remember when the Liberals, Justin Trudeau's Liberals, were telling you that carbon tax didn't add to the price of food or inflation? And they said that, and they were adamant about that. How many times they even got a bunch of laureate economists to say, I think it was 100 of them, to say that it didn't add that to the price of inflation. But when they took it off, they just like, oh my God, look at this. Look what we did. We lowered inflation by removing the carbon tax. And just like, let's listen in to the new environment minister talking about the industrial carbon tax and how it doesn't add to the price of food.
So you suggested earlier in your opening remarks that there was a climate cost of food, yet the industrial carbon tax is still applied to fertilizer production, grain drying, farm equipment, and you've made great speeches in the House to the effect that this is not a tax, has no impact on food prices. Isn't that an oxymoron? I mean, like that's ridiculous. You say there's a cost of food for all these other things, but yet you're taxing the means of production of food, and it doesn't impact the price at the grocery store. Can you explain that, please?
Yeah, I mean, I can even provide the studies to this committee if you want. Absolutely. There are studies time and time again, in fact, that say that the industrial carbon price does not increase the cost of
So
food.
then what does it impact? Is it just impact the viability of farms, and so
emissions,
farms
sir.
get smaller?
No, it does. It's actually
So farms consolidate to bigger farms?
Small farms aren't impacted by the industrial
They're
carbon
not impacted
price.
by it all, so the carbon taxes that I'm paying as a producer are what, imaginary?
The industrial carbon price applies to large industry. It applies in different ways in different parts of our country.
I pay carbon tax on the electricity and the equipment and the fertilizer that I use to run my farm. And you say that's imaginary?
I would love to see how you're breaking that down, but what I am telling you...
With dollars. With real dollars.
You wouldn't have a line, sir, that says anywhere industrial carbon price...
Because it's hidden, yeah, but the price has gone up on everything.
I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. Like, there's an industrial
It
carbon
reminds me.
tax.
I feel like I'm back at high school or something. That's the sophistication of that woman. What is that? What are we watching there?
That's what I mean.
What is
They won't be held
infantile
accountable.
behavior?
And then, like in a couple years, we're going to hear that they removed the industrial carbon tax and the price of food has gone down, and we should all applaud them. This is the same argument they made on the carbon tax. How many times did we listen to this, and how many times did CBC tell us that the carbon tax did not add to the price of food and did not add to inflation? How many times did they tell us? And they had then studies. 100 laureate-winning economists came out and said, all funded by the Liberal government, that came out and said that carbon taxes don't add to inflation. Wasn't it 100 of them? Nobel laureate
Something
winning.
like that. Probably the same. Probably also in that group with also the group that said immigration doesn't increase house prices.
Oh, immigration
Pretty much the
doesn't
same set
affect
of people.
healthcare. Hey, immigration doesn't affect healthcare either. Do you know what I mean? Like, you bring in 1.5 million people, how does it?
Yeah. Or anything for that matter. All it does is bring nice food and happy people.
Is this story on CBC? No. So if you want to be, like, if you, they're making you question your sanity. The common sense thrown right out the window. We paid for a study, and that study says it doesn't affect that. But now,
How long has that been the case, though, that they try and make you feel like you're stupid? They try and make you feel like that is gaslighting. That's what people mean by that term.
So here's CTV doing the carrying the water for the Liberals again, and let's get a new tax going. And they're saying that doctor shortage myth and taxing boomers. Boomers didn't fully prepay for health services they're now receiving in Canada. Instead, the burden is being strapped to the backs of young people in the form of debt, according to a UBC prof. They worked their whole lives paying taxes. They didn't pay for anything. So Paul now wants a way to fix healthcare in this country is not to employ more doctors. There are already more than we need, but instead to tax wealthy seniors. That fixes healthcare. A new tax, isn't it? You can't get in to see a doctor, but somehow a new tax will fix it. How does that?
And that would be a pension tax, wouldn't it, as well? Like a levy on your
I just like, how many millions of Canadians don't have a doctor, a family doctor? But if there was a tax, they would, obviously. I just don't understand how those correlate. I'm an accountant. I can't figure it out. A tax all of a sudden gets millions of Canadians access to a doctor. How does that work? Because we have free health care, so how does it change just by taxing these seniors, taxing wealthy seniors? This is basically it. The boomers voted for the Liberals, and now they're about to get punished. Stupid is,
his
as
argument
stupid does.
This guy's argument is that when boomers started out in the world and started paying taxes, 10% of the population were seniors, 20 plus, and it's increasing. And his argument, therefore, and a lot of that is down to longer lifespans. So when you live longer, you need a lot more healthcare. And his argument is that that wasn't like baked into the taxes that they paid during their working lives, because there was not an assumption that they were going to live to their sort of mid to late 80s, and that they were going to represent 1 in 5 or 1 in 4 of all Canadians. But it's like the idea. It's strange how he then gets to we should raid their pensions, basically. That's kind of.
But how does the guy? I get what
that's
you're
the logic
saying.
of it.
I get what his logic is, but how is taxing them increasing access to healthcare?
Yeah, maybe.
We don't need more doctors.
Build more,
it says.
build more hospitals or something.
It says,
we need to read a study in more depth.
it's like clownish. Just come back to new tax, new tax, new tax, new tax, new tax, new tax, new tax.
But also divide. Lots of division, isn't there? Where it's like old versus young, men versus women, and so on. It's
more divisive.
Very often we have to be cut up into groups, don't we? Which ignores the fact that a lot of these boomers, so-called, that's almost a slur nowadays, isn't it, boomer? But a lot of these older people, they feel really bad for their kids and grandkids. They're not like, it's not like they're at war with each other, the old and the young. Not at least not on sort of personal level. It's a shame that it degenerates into that.
Ottawa begins to consider the possibility of a Quebec referendum. Is that going to beat out the Alberta referendum? This is what the Liberals have done to Canada. We have a country that is not Team Canada. We have the provinces pitted against each other. We're fighting over a pipeline. We have people, talking about nonsense on here, arguing about things too, instead of like tapping the vast resources. We need a real leader that comes through and says, this is the plan for Canada. This is how we have Canadians. I did interviews with MNP talking about, 67% of Canadians are $200 away from meeting their monthly obligations. Yet, we don't want to tap our energy, our biggest resource. It's like, that's our asset, sitting right there. Nope. Anyway, Quebec independence could become central to Canadian politics next year, and Ottawa is already making plans. According to Conservative Party source discussing the issue with CBC, it comes as the Parti Québécois has led in the polls for Quebec for 2 years now and has promised to hold a referendum on Quebec sovereignty during its first term should it win power back next year. Mark Carney's government has already held talks about potential unity crisis that could be unfolding in Canada, according to CBC. I mean, it's not just Quebec. I mean, if Quebec goes, Alberta goes. If Alberta goes, Quebec goes. I mean, it is the unraveling of Canada. But when we can't even get a pipeline. I mean, we talk about this on the show all the time, the sovereignty. There's so many different competing sovereign nations inside of Canada.
But it's almost you saying what you were saying there about Alberta and Quebec. It almost feels like it's getting to be like one or the other now, isn't it? Because they're so together. And it's also what it represents. But you say there's several countries within Canada. I mean, fundamentally, I would say there's two countries in there. There's Quebec and then there's the rest. And the rest is very complicated and mixed, but I think loosely speaking, that's true. And there's an interesting thing here, like a Liberal source tells CBC that we need to start promoting the benefits of federation to Quebecers. Do people in Quebec really need to be told what the benefits are to them?
Yeah, they've been living off of
this
it
whole bloody system seems to exist for them, to keep them happy. Hence we have an extremist MP like Stephen Guilbeault trying to drive the national agenda, trying to kill a project thousands of miles away from where his constituents live. I mean, there's another bit in this story which is quite interesting where they, and elsewhere as well, I've been reading about this, where it's comparing it to the 1995 referendum and how there was like that love bomb, wasn't there, from the rest of Canada, and when they went to Montreal and trying to persuade Quebec to stay, and there was all this kind of affection from the rest of Canada, trying to almost begging Quebec, like, please don't go. And what a lot of people are saying now, including in this article, is it wouldn't be like that now. Now it would probably be, how can we help you leave? Like, what can we do to make this easier for you? And I feel like that's true, actually. But just based on my own sort of experience of life in this country and speaking to people in this country, I don't think that there's much interest at all in keeping Quebec in Canada. Like, if it came down to it, I think a lot of people would just say, all right, bye-bye.
I know the Newfoundlanders would like it. They would, then Toronto's only an hour away and they could get down there and watch a Leafs game.
Well, that would be one of the biggest questions, like what would happen to the maritime provinces, but
that's an old Newfoundland joke.
Figure it out.
An old Newfoundland joke. The banks making out like bandits still. The banks making out like bandits. A lot of them with record earnings. Imagine that, eh? Record earnings. If you're still paying monthly banking fees, you need to stop. There's apps like Wealthsimple, and I turn young people onto that all the time. Wealthsimple. You can buy gold there, you can buy Bitcoin there, you can buy fractional stocks at zero transactional cost. You get free banking, and they have a checking account, and they have a credit card now. Why are you paying banking fees? Because look at the money they're raking in there at the banks, at the big banks, making money hand over fist, right? Hand over fist.
And it is money for nothing, isn't it? Quite literally.
The banking is, if you're an employee there, my wife used to work there for like 10 years or 11 years, I don't know. More for less. They always want more for less. And there were so many deductions on her paycheck when she worked there, it was crazy. And more for less. I mean, they are the Canada's like top institutions. If you look at our stock market, they're in the top there.
Yeah. Next to Shopify.
Yeah, Wealthsimple. That's where you need. We got some BC news for you, though.
Live from the Now Media Newsroom.
After the BC news, we got lots of really good international news, so stick around. We got lots of good stuff left here. And this is most of the Conservative BC standing behind Trevor Hall there. There you go. He's the new interim leader there. Let's listen in there.
Trevor Halford.
Halford, that's right.
Thank you, guys. I just want to begin with a couple quick things, if you'll allow me. Number one, you'll see that not all of us are up here today. We do have some people that are away. Actually, a few people have actually left. They had leave to attend Christmas concerts with their kids, which I'm looking forward to going to mine this weekend. So, but we're feeling good. And but I did want to take this time, really. I've known John.
That's good. We're going to talk about it a little bit later there. But yeah, I was just reading the Twitter thing there, Trevor Halford. And then here's some reaction from the Vasica Palace and their power play. And they had on there the Premier, the old Premier Christy Clark. Maybe she's eyeing up the job again. But let's listen into what they have to say.
It's hard to overstate how wild a swing it's been since the election in BC. Corey, you've run a lot of campaigns. The story out of that election was David Eby almost lost. And the story now is he might be in such a good position, he wants to go to the polls much sooner. Like, what do you think went wrong for John Rustad? And do you think the party is salvageable under a different leader?
Well, I think you saw the party pulling itself apart on really secondary or third tier issues, as opposed to focusing on the big stuff. I think Eby is probably deceptively vulnerable if the BC Conservative Party can actually get its act together. When you look at things like development of pipelines, there's a huge number of votes there. Pushing 70% of the electorate is in favor of that sort of development, maybe with some caveats or asterisks on that. But overall, you're dealing with a supermajority of people who want to see things move forward. You're also seeing issues like cost of living and jobs in the economy generally driving the issue set. And if you're to add another one, it would probably be crime. So that's a very favorable issue environment for Conservatives. If you can find a leader that can focus on the big stuff and then put on a shelf some of the smaller issues that tend to tear at the core of a conservative free market coalition, then I think you've got a good basis for a winning campaign. But I guess we're going to see in the coming weeks whether, as Christy said, a leader that can do that emerges, that has enough strength to pull those threads together and to talk about the big stuff rather.
70%, I did interview Gavin Dew yesterday as well. We did talk about a lot of those issues, and you and I hashed over John Rustad's climb up, and then the fall down, and where he may have made some missteps. you and I interviewed Jonathan Kay as well and say they need to find somebody that can pull this fractured party together. And that is that conversation I had with Gavin Dew yesterday. It's a good interview. You can go watch that as well. So they need to find that.
It's a hard task, isn't it?
Yeah, you need to find a leader that can pull all of that together. Because, you know, there is some fractures. Eleanor Sturko, I think, may be one of John Rustad's biggest mistakes, booting him from the party. Very strong voice and probably a leading contender for leading the party. And, you know, I did ask Gavin if they've had discussions with her, pulling her back into the party. And then, you know, there's Amelia Bolpe that was like shamed out of the party, really. And then, you know, there's these other fractures that happened on early. I think there was 3 of them. They formed, or 2 of them of those 3 formed One BC, and then there's this new party, Center BC, and that party probably has not much leg to stand on now when they start this. Well, it depends on who they pull in for a leader. And then the question I asked Gavin is, there's a danger right now that John Rustad pulls another fracture and takes the loyalists, because there's a few people not standing there because they're loyalists and they didn't go to stand there. And then so does John Rustad become a new fracture himself? Or I asked if you know, John Rustad would lead and hold this party together. So lots of questions.
Well, Rustad said that he's not interested. He doesn't want the civil war, he said in his words. So I imagine he's going to be quiet.
I mean, that'll be a big thing.
Certainly,
if
that's what Kevin
sticks,
Falcon did.
If John Rustad sticks and holds the line and holds what's, you know, like some of his loyalists and holds them in there. Because some of them loyalists have to be worried too that they get tossed, because some of them had no political background before running, some of them locally here. So they, you know, they're definitely at risk too for whoever becomes the leader and decides who gets to run under the flag of the BC Conservatives.
But the issue is the same as it was with Falcon and same as it was with John Rustad. They need to find somebody that can bring together actual conservatives, like social conservatives, people who like you would call right wing or centre right or whatever. You need to bring them into the same party as people who are liberals, you know, from the BC Liberal days. They need to figure out a way to do that. Obviously, Rustad couldn't do that, and hence it was like carnage. Kevin Falcon couldn't do it. I mean, it's not easy to do that, is it? Well, it's a lot easier for David Eby, because he just leads a progressive coalition, really, and that's just like a hodgepodge of all kinds of weirdness, vague left-wingism. You know, his only real rival is the Greens, because they kind of like out-progressive him, and sometimes he needs to like guard his left flank. But I think it's quite easy for David Eby or whoever leads the NDP, at least compared to BC Conservatives. It's, you know, that is a really, really hard job. I wouldn't envy whoever it is that's going to do it. But, you know, you mentioned Eleanor Sturgo, you mentioned her so many times. It would take somebody of that caliber, I think. It's going to take somebody who is like obviously a high-grade person, I would say. You can't do it if you're just like a mediocre partisan. That's not going to work. They're going to need actual ability.
I think the reason she was booted is that she was a strong voice and there was a leadership challenge, and that, you know, I think those are the stakes that John made, and he's paid the price. But like the NDP, lots of pots on the stove that are boiling over, and I don't even think they know which pot to look at. They've made a mess, including in the interior here with healthcare. It's an absolute mess. And then crime, safety, economy, all kinds of things. And the one big one that's sitting right there is 70% of Canadians or British Columbians want a pipeline. And this government is an absolute no-go on that. So there you go. That alone can help you win an election. And here's a part of Rob Shaw put this out there. This is actually from Angus Reid, though, that Eby's popularity may be sliding a bit there too.
It's remarkable that it's remarkable that he won that last election, that he survived that election.
But it's by a whisker. There's by a whisker, right? And that was John Rustad's mistake too, by not pulling in the BC United, the stronger BC United candidates, and bringing them into the big tent, and he just left them hang in the wind. And that I think is the one regret that he has. And you know, there's many people that tried to convince him to make those phone calls, but we were talking with a lot of those candidates that didn't get any communication for 2 weeks, and they decided to run on their own as independents. And That is the mistake. That is, you know, like you want to talk about a TSN turning point? That would be it. And whoops, right? There you go.
Yeah. But as, you know, as Corey Ten Eyck, I believe his name is, Doug Ford's campaign manager, as he said there on CTV, such an interesting way to phrase it, but he said it's an issue-rich environment for the opposition in British Columbia.
Yeah,
And that's like an excellent way of putting it, isn't it? It really is. Like, you can kind of just throw a ball and you're going to hit some kind of massive issue in BC because the province is in a pretty, you know, dire state right now. So, yeah, I mean, you can't complain. Whereas, like, for example, for Pierre Poilievre, it's a lot harder, isn't it, to push against Carney right now. He's in the ascendancy, and that's a much harder task. But for whoever's in charge of the BC Conservatives, like, you know, just you close your eyes and shoot. You're gonna hit. You know, you're gonna get a winner because there are just so many problems. And EB is personally doesn't have much of a personal brand or anything like that. He's a kind of doesn't have much of a personality at all, at least in terms of how he presents himself. So, I mean, so many options.
Yeah, and then this one here from CBC, it was wrong why Richmond, BC residents weren't told about First Nation. We covered this loss. I've interviewed Jeff Moyse, constitutional lawyer, Aboriginal law expert, on worked for the 6 different governments here in BC on Aboriginal law and a lot of the treaties that were settled. And the property owners weren't notified. EB said they didn't notify them because they said that the properties weren't in jeopardy. But you read through this and it said even the courts were told. I'll let you talk on this. Go ahead.
Yeah, even the judge said, you know, if you want to go ahead unilaterally, and it said anybody in this case wants to go out and reveal it to the public, on you go, do it. And they didn't. Obviously, the city of Richmond or the province. I'm not sure the federal government was in on that one, were they? But nobody did anyway. Nobody released it. And then the lawyer who's doing the case for the plaintiff here, the Cochin, it was so strange. Lawyers are such a funny breed of people, aren't they? But his comments, which are on the record, he kind of says, I don't think we should tell the homeowners because doing so would, in legalese, he said, doing so would sabotage this case. It's like, and I don't want to do that. And that for some reason, I don't understand what they were thinking, particularly the province's lawyers. They just said, well, we don't like this. We want to bring the public in on this, but we're not going to tell them. We're not just going to do it, even though the judges said that we could. Just such strange behavior. And they really should be in hot water for that. Because this is in 2017, by the way. They were talking behind the scenes about these people's homes, and they were arguing in abstract legal terms about whether it really concerns them. Can you believe that? As far as I'm concerned, they are the only people who this concerns. The people who own the property that's going to be affected. But for some reason, these overpaid maniacs in a courtroom were saying, it doesn't really relate to these people. I mean, why is that even a discussion, whether it relates to those people? Just the strange world of the law, you know, and lawyers. There's things that they get up to. Such a strange set of people.
We're going to move on to our international news, and we got that murky background in our live shot there. It's actually a murky day here in Kelowna. It looks like really snowy and wet and murky. It is snowing out there, actually. Snowing out there in Kelowna. Well, it's better than minus 25 in Ottawa, though. But
I think it might be minus 15 or 10 or something now. It's warming up a bit, but yeah, it's still bleak.
Let's move on to our international news here.
Live from the Now Media Newsroom.
Donald Trump, the peacemaker, at it again. Let's listen in. Here is another nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize.
Biggest vote of thanks goes to President Donald Trump. No one was asking President Trump to take up this task. Our region is far from the headlines, But when the president saw the opportunity to contribute to peace, he immediately took it. This conflict has lasted for 30 years. We have seen countless mediations and efforts, but none has succeeded in resolving the underlying
That's good. That's
issues.
good on that. So there you go. That's the war with Rwanda and the Congo, and then this goes on. I watched the whole news conference there where they all spoke. There you go. Another. His next meeting. He's gonna, talk about how many wars he stopped, and he has been a factor in many, many wars in this world. The one that he can't seem to stop is the one in Russia. We're going to talk about that in a little bit later here. Let's listen to this on the prediction for growth in the United States next year for 2026.
That we've seen and we've studied over the last couple of weeks is that when there's a government shutdown, then the things that we economists call the soft data, the survey data, tend to really, really tank because everyone's in a terrible mood because Washington can't work and the government shut down and they're worried about how bad it's going to be. But the hard data are what do people actually do with their lives, with their pocketbooks. And so, for example, we just saw the best Black Friday ever. People went out getting ready for the Christmas holiday shopping season, feeling very, very optimistic about the economy. As we go into next year, don't forget that all the people who have no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, who are going to be able to deduct the interest on their car loan if they buy a car, all those things are kicking in big time as we go into next year. That's why Secretary Bessent and I are both very confident that we're going to be looking at growth in the 4 numbers for the first half of next year.
So, I mean, I talk about leading and lagging indicators. The leading indicators in the United States are all positive. The leading indicators in Canada, I would say, are all negative. And it's a tale of two nations right now. And, some of the things they're doing in the United States, I mean, if I was Mark Carney, I would just copy them. Like this thing with no tax on tips, no tax for seniors. What a boom. Here we're talking in Canada how we need to punish our seniors. There should be no tax on CPP. And here we're talking about how we should tax them more, how we can just take a little bit more from them. And in the United States, exactly the opposite when they're saying no tax on security payments. And no tax on tips. And no tax on overtime. Like, these are things that drive people to want to work harder, not disincentivize people. And then no tax on buying a new car. Imagine how that would spur people to go and buy a new car. Right now, you're probably paying interest payments. You bought a new car, didn't you? You're paying interest payments. Just think if you could write that off. Man, what a boom that would be, right? Absolutely a tale of two nations. And this guy here, look, compare him to Jerome Powell right now. Like this guy is projected to be the next Fed chair. I mean, that's a cheery, happy-go-lucky kind of guy. Look at their stock markets, on fire, absolutely on fire. And AI, they lead the world in AI, and they have it's all about energy. If you go back to the beginning of the show, it's all about energy. And what does their energy look like? Drill, baby, drill. I don't know. Black Friday, one of the biggest days of the year for retail. What's that? Ian muted himself? Ian, you muted yourself. We got a little clip here from Pete Hegseth there on drones. Can't hear you, Ian.
Drone Dominance is a $1 billion program funded by President Trump's Big, Beautiful Bill. It is purpose-built on the pillars of the War Department's new acquisition philosophy, a stable demand signal to expand the U.S. drone industrial base by leveraging private capital paired with flexible contracting built for commercial companies founded by our best engineers and entrepreneurs. Drone Dominance will do two things: drive costs down and capabilities up. We will deliver tens of thousands of small drones to our force in 2026 and hundreds of thousands of them by 2027.
That's good.
I will soon be meeting with...
That's good. You there now? You back, Ian?
I hope so. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Drone Dominance. I was just there's some comments here in the YouTube comments here. I was just in Tokyo. I'm going to talk about this a lot in Tokyo, and my son was there with me, and he's kind of left-leaning, and he's just like, he said, I don't understand it. Why are all these people really loving America? Like everywhere you go, there's American flags, America this, America that. Such respect for America and Japan. Well, they know that they rest under the comfort and security of the American military machine. Canada does the same thing, yet we want to stick sticks in their eyes, which seems kind of odd, for sure. Seems kind of odd. But Tokyo, I was there for 10 days, no homelessness, no drug stuff. And I walked around at 3 in the morning and felt completely safe. I don't feel safe in Kelowna at 6 p.m. So there you go. Do with that what you will. This is huge, and this is something that they could do for Canadian youth. Financial literacy, I talk about it lots. We need more financial literacy. They're starting to teach it in the schools in Florida. They need to start teaching it to our children here. I try to do as much as I can. But this is huge. This is absolutely massive. These, they're calling it the Trump accounts, because why not? They're going to put $1,000 in the accounts of kids under 10. And we're going to play the clip here. We don't have the clip? Oh, I thought I had the clip. But anyway, we're going to. So there's 25+ million kids are going to get that $1,000, and that's in people. And parents can then contribute up to $5,000 themselves. And if you contribute the maximum every year, you could have a couple $100,000 by the time that kid turns 18. And they're going to invest it in the S&P. And then so all the kids are going to be learning about the stock market as they grow. They're going to be investing in the stock market, which also will lead to more stock market growth. And here's the president or the head of Robinhood here on the president. And this is where they're going to open up a lot of these Trump accounts. Robinhood, a great app in the United States, and Wealthsimple here in Canada. Robinhood's coming to Canada as well, though. But let's listen to what he has to say from Vlad.
How do you think this is going to get implemented? How easy is it? And are you, how involved are you? I saw you were quoted in the journal article, I think, about this.
Yeah, so there was an event at the White House to announce the creation of this initiative as part of the budget reconciliation bill. And, you know, I was there sort of as a representative of the retail brokerage industry. I've talked to the president about this personally, given him my assurance that I care a lot about this, and Robinhood's ready to give technology resources, operational resources, put our best people, because
we'll get you with Scott Besson and get this whole thing.
Well, I think this is super important, particularly now, because getting people from a young age to buy into our free market system and be owners of America, I think that could solve a lot of the problems that we have brewing.
Absolutely huge. Game changer. Absolutely massive. This is absolutely massive. And it's something that if I was in government right now, I would say we're copying that right now, today, doing it right now. That's where you make a difference, instead of these, these taco and tinsel giveaways and stuff like this nonsense. And what we have is a government that's not serious. And that's absolutely massive for young people to get them involved. And I did it with lots of people I know. Get them into Wealthsimple, and I say, instead of buying that $9 sugar-based coffee drink, buy $9 worth of Microsoft, $9 worth of Tesla, $9 worth of Google, whatever. $9. Even if the stock goes into half, you're still $5 ahead. And your body will like you better than shoveling that garbage into your system. Instead of going through the drive-through, buy $9 worth of a stock. Well, you're not getting through $9 through any drive-through in Canada. $20 for a meal. And some of the drive-thrus here. Take that $20 and buy some Tesla stock. Take that $20 and buy whatever stock you want. And you're going to find fractional stocks. This is absolutely the advantage. This is where you're going to learn this on this show as opposed to on the CBC. Wealthsimple, open an account today. We can put a link in there too. You'll get $25 to open this account. Buy a fractional stock, no transactional fees, because they can use some of the big banks. Even if they have a $7 in and $7 out fee, to buy a $7 worth of, I like Tesla, $7 worth of Tesla, the stock has to triple before you make any money. But with Wealthsimple, or Robinhood for that matter, you can buy fractional shares with no commission. So you get the difference. It's absolutely a game changer for young people. Absolutely a game changer. Stop wasting money on nonsense. start buying into the stock market. Start buying into the stock market. So I say that one more time. Start buying into the stock market. Take the money that you were going to waste on nonsense and buy stock. And then you'll start to learn about that stock. You'll start to, it'll help you in so many different ways. And if you have a TFSA in Canada, that's your best vehicle. Open a TFSA account. It's tax-free. It's one of the few vehicles that Stephen Harper gave to Canadians. I don't know what the Liberals have given us other than a taco and tinsel break and a bunch of virtue signaling, identity politics, and nonsense and lying, and don't even read contracts. But they do go on junkets all the time. Get mining stocks. Sure, I love mining. I own lots of mining stocks. The American Eagle is a great one here in Canada right now. American Eagle. Copper stock in northern BC. There you go. And we're going to put that link in for Wealthsimple. And then you'll get 25 bucks. And then you can open your Wealthsimple account. And it'll be amazing. And you'll thank me later. Wealthsimple, share that with, then you can do it. Once you have an account, you can share that with your friends, your youth, your family, or whatever. And they'll get 25 bucks. You'll get 25 bucks. And it is absolutely amazing. We want to put the right link in though, because we need the affiliate link in there so that that's okay. You can pull that one out and we'll pull the other link in there. But yeah, it's great. But Europe is facing civilizational, we'll get that link in there for you right away. Europe is facing civilization erasure and might not be able to remain a U.S. ally, says the White House there, because of all that immigration stuff that's going on.
Yeah, well, and also these low birth rates, authoritarian approach to speech, freedom of expression, and lack of confidence. That's another thing that they point out, like sort of not proud of being German or French or whatever it is. But it's it's pretty stark language from the Americans. They don't really mention Canada, though. They just talk about the Western Hemisphere. And it says here, in relation to the Western Hemisphere, we will enlist established friends in the hemisphere to control migration, stop drug flows, and strengthen stability and security. But what I thought was quite interesting was this other line here. We will reward and encourage the region's governments, political parties, and movements broadly aligned with our principles and strategy. How does that make? That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like how does that connect with Trump's attitude to Pierre Poilievre? You'd think Pierre Poilievre was a little bit more aligned with that kind of ideology, wouldn't you? And yet they almost conspired to sink Poilievre in the election. So I don't know. I don't know how to interpret that one.
I just sent you the link there. If you could put that in there. There you go. We did that already, that story we did. And here it is, Michael Jordan, the latest to walk away from the Democratic Party. I tried to stick it out. He told reporters just can't do it anymore. And he said the moral bankruptcy of the Democrats and their unwillingness to work on anything besides obstructing the president, like him or not, he needs to be able to do his job. And I'd say the same thing here in Canada. We use Trump as a straw man for everything instead of like, let's compete, let's compete. That's what makes you better. Michael Jordan knows how to compete, do you? Instead of whining and feeling entitled, do you know how to compete? And if you use that link, you'll get 25 bucks to open your Wealthsimple account. And then you can, once you have your account, you can share that link and you can get 25 bucks. And whoever you get, your kids get your kids into it, 100%. Get your kids on Wealthsimple. And I say this with experience. I've got all my kids on it. And I tell everybody I know to get their children on it. And open, especially if they're 18 and over, open a TFSA. First thing to do, max out that TFSA. And even if you're an older person, TFSA before the RRSP. Because guess what? They're coming after you. That's what the Canadian government wants, tax you more. TFSA, that's the only thing. Well, you never know when they go after that. But hey, they haven't been talking about that one yet, but maybe soon. But they're going to go after your RRSPs, and they're going to go after they're going to claw back your CPP because of your RSPs and all that stuff too. So good luck with that. Putin in India, and what a big fanfare thing there. Let's play a little bit of this as we talk, because we're going to turn the sound off on this clip here. But Vladimir Putin getting the big welcome in India. They know how to put on a show too. They're making the royals look. Canada can't put on a show like this, but look at India. That's quite the show.
Those are nice hats.
Yeah. Prime Minister Modi there.
Well, he's certainly walking a fine line, Modi, isn't he? He's trying not to upset the Americans too much, but he also wants to keep Russia as an ally.
And then they had a big announcement as well. And here's the big announcement, because they also, this is back to our theme of our show. It's all about energy. Here's the announcement on it's all about energy.
Does not limit to that. We are also conducting a flagship project to build the largest Indian nuclear power plant, Kudankulam. 2 out of 6 reactor units have been already connected to the energy network, and 4 are still under construction. Getting this nuclear power plant to full power output will give an impressive contribution to the...
That's good. So they announced that they're going to build lots of... The interpreter's voice, they should use like Donald Duck or something like that for Vladimir Putin to make him... yeah. Anyway, sometimes the interpreters they use for different people is weird, especially in Canada. It's kind of weird. But yeah, it's all about energy. And look what they're selling to the Indians. They're selling them nuclear power. Russia. You know what Russia is? The mirror of Canada as far as resource rich. And what does Russia do? Sells it to everybody, including to the European Union. And it funds the Ukrainian war for the Russians. Who would have thought? Hey? Who would have thought that was...
Well, Vladimir Putin thought that, didn't he? He was right to think that.
Here's your friends, 2 of your friends, Nigel Farage and the BBC going at each other here, where Nigel Farage is being attacked by the BBC, and he's saying, best look in the mirror, pot, calling the kettle black. Let's have a listen.
The double standards and hypocrisy of the BBC are absolutely astonishing. At the time I was alleged to have made these remarks, one of your most popular weekly shows was the Black and White Minstrels, right? The BBC were very happy to use blackface. Oh, and not just in the Black and White Minstrels, you did it in It Ain't Half Hot Mum as well. And what about Alf Garnett? Do you remember what he called Marigold? Do you remember the word he used to describe Marigold on not live, but on primetime national TV? I better not repeat the word, otherwise you'll all use it and say that I used it. Homophobia? It ain't half hot, Mum. Are you being served? Oh, and what about Bernard Manning? Perfectly happy at exactly the same time for Bernard Manning to appear on primetime national BBC comedy, telling jokes for which these days you'd probably get a knock at the door from our thought police and perhaps get a 31-month prison sentence. I cannot put up with the double standards of the BBC about what I'm alleged to have said 49 years ago and what you were putting out on mainstream content. So I want an apology from the BBC for virtually everything you did throughout the 1970s and 80s.
Cringy. He's sort of approving of their logic, of the sort of progressive extremist logic there, isn't he? That you should apologise for things that happened decades ago. But this is all in reaction to a very, very, very strange article written by the Guardian newspaper. It was a hit piece where the Guardian went and interviewed people that Nigel Farage was at school with when he was a teenager. So we're talking 40 years ago or something like that. And he's alleged to have said certain things that are anti-Semitic and generally sort of racist or whatever. And for some bizarre reason, this is like leading the news. And the Guardian keeps, because I have an app on my phone, they're constantly sending me like push notifications. And it's like some random guy says, "That's bad, Nigel Farage. You've got to apologise for what you did when you were 4." And it's just so strange. I mean, it's an indication that the Canadian political scene is pitiable and very low grade, but so is the British one. You know, the British are just so pathetic, and this is such a stupid, miserable waste of time that they're busying themselves with here. But I suppose Nigel Farage is obviously sick of it, and he's trying to, like, he's doing the "no you" Spider-Man thing, isn't he? But I don't know. I feel like he's buying into their logic, though. He's kind of like saying, "Oh yeah, you should be sorry. You should say sorry for TV shows that you ran." And he's like, "Shut up, man. No, they shouldn't."
For the record, I'd like to apologize to all the people that threw me in lockers when I was a high school student and bullied me, put me in garbage cans and all that, for all the mean things I thought about you. Anyway. New York Times, breaking news: Spain, Ireland, Netherlands, and Slovenia said they're boycotting next year's Eurovision Song Contest. Like, who cares? And why was that in our budget? That's my question. Why did Canada have to put that, all the things they could put in the budget? Canada put in the budget, Carney's budget, Eurovision, that we want to be a part of Eurovision. Why? Why was that in the budget?
Just as a distraction from all of the misery included, all of the debt. They just wanted the headlines, and they got them, to be fair.
And where is the story on CBC on the Governor General's wanting the skating rink in her private residence there? Where is that? And then wanting to use it as getting corporations that are under federal jurisdiction there to get tax receipts. Can we create things like that? Do you want to put a skating rink in your house there, and then create a tax receipt so that you can give charitable receipts out to people and say that you're going to have underprivileged kids skate in the skating rink once every blue moon? It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. How about charging them for using that thing? Is that on their tax return?
Well, they get certainly paid enough. They could pay rent, couldn't they?
Absolutely ridiculous. But hey, where is that on CBC saying this is right now at a time in Canada when we're having massive deficits? The Governor General wants a private skating rink. Private. She's going to say that they're going to use it for events. A skating rink at Rideau Hall. For what reason? Put the $8 million into another skating rink so kids can play hockey practice at a rink that matters, not something that you can, and then saying things like you want to put a roof on it for climate change. Nonsense. Just absolute nonsense. You can tell the mentality of the people that are going to buy into that. We need to get a list of those people. I need to sell them something. Tim Walz whining because people are driving by his house screaming retard out the window ever since Trump called. Let's listen to Tim. Tim, he's like our Tim. Remember, the old joke was, let's get Tim to do it. He is the tool man.
True. This creates danger. And I'll tell you what, in my time on this, I'd never seen this before. People driving by my house and using the R word in front of people. This is shameful. And I have yet to see an elected official, a Republican elected official, say, you're right, that's shameful. He should not say it. So look, I'm worried. We know how these things go. They start with taunts, they turn to violence. So deeply concerned.
I just want to remind Tim, was Tim not the guy calling Elon Musk a Nazi? Was that not the guy? Was he not the guy?
Well, and Trump as well. How many things has Trump been called? Fascist? He gets called a fascist every bloody day.
Wasn't Tim Walz the guy, though, that went on stage with his phone and said every time he's got this app and every time the Tesla stock drops, he celebrates?
Yeah.
This guy
But
is...
Trump used the R word. I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know you could phrase it that way. Against Tim Walz. Tim Walz is now saying it goes from a name calling to violence. Who wants to go and commit violence against people based on that? That's not something that's going to motivate somebody to commit violence. However, if you call somebody a racist Nazi and you invent conspiracy theories about how they're undermining the United States, they're going to kick off a dictatorship and a military coup. Right, that's a reason to be violent against someone, isn't it? It doesn't, it does not compute. It's not good enough. But as usual from this guy, just everything about him is low grade. He's just so appalling.
Trump may have dodged a bullet. Literally dodged a bullet. America dodged a bullet. This guy could be the vice president. and Kamala Harris could be sitting next to him. It would have been great for Carney and the Liberals, because this whole green scheme would be still going on, all this stuff, and China would be laughing and rubbing his hands together. This guy has, the IQ of I don't know. Not very.
A pea.
A pea?
But he could also, bear in mind, Tim Waltz, if they'd won that election, he could be president by now. Kamala Harris could have drunk herself into a coma and been incapacitated, and then Waltz the Wally would now be the president.
And the only reason she picked him was because she wanted a white male, because she didn't want the gay Pete Buttigieg.
Well, something about, it was like appealing to straight white men, like the tough American male. It's like, yeah,
that's
he's going to do that.
That's the guy. That's the guy. This is the comedy part of the show. That's the guy.
Yeah.
Somebody says, please apologize for that last remark. Which last remark? I don't know idea. Well, simple website, very slow and almost unresponsive. Not sure why. Probably because like the people that we reach, we drove it into that. Well, simple should be working. Well, simple, where you want to go. If it's not working right now, just maybe check your internet connection. Do a speed test. Speedtest.org on your own website. But definitely great for youth. Great for people. You can get mortgages on there through Pine too now. Crazy. Absolutely great. Stephen A. Smith, and he's done with cancel culture. I like Stephen A. Smith. He's a Democrat. Listen to what Stephen A. Smith has to say.
I know up front the Republicans, or Repeticans, as I call them because of the Epstein thing, they're straight racist. I already know that. Because it's a double standard. Where's the same energy?
Time out. So what we're going to do is we're going to say Republicans are racist as opposed to specific names. You're just going to call an abundance of people racist.
A blanket across the board, the Republicans are straight racist.
Goodbye, man. Have a nice day. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. I'm not letting anybody on either side of the aisle castigate an entire party of people like that. I'm not doing that. That gets us nowhere. Malik, you can call back any other show. But if you have points, make your point. What if you ran across somebody?
Brett was saying my mic is intermittent. I switched mics, and tell me if that helps at all. And we're almost done anyway, but sorry about that. If you notice my mic cutting out, let me know. But that's enough of that, dude. You know what I mean? A while ago, MSNBC and that would be encouraging that. CBC encourages that kind of nonsense too. Look at all the stuff that they've said against us here in Canada.
People in Congress on the Democratic side, and to be fair, the Republican side, also making these wild generalizations about what is in effect sort of tens of millions of people at least.
But it's good on Stephen Smith and saying we're not going to put up with this anymore. Buzz off, because before this would be just like, like this would be just they'd be rubbing their hands together. Oh, here's somebody that's going to talk terrible, right? And we'll look at our mics, because this is odd that these have been working well. And thanks, Joe. Keep telling us. Yeah, we don't have the $1.5 billion that CBC has.
Yeah, they've got the best mics.
Maybe they
can give us some. We can loan some.
They've got their foot on our throat with Bill C-18. They've taken away our audience that we earned over a decade with Facebook and Instagram of over 200,000. They took that away because they said they were helping us. Thanks for the help. We could do without.
Stephen Gilboa was on about that yesterday. The press were, they throw a microphone at him, and he was talking about all the money that Pascal Santonge got for journalists across Canada. There's no recognition of reality, is there?
Well, Joe, you can hit the tip jar. YouTube has a tip jar. We don't want to go fund me, but you can hit the tip jar. There is one on YouTube there. You can actually hit it. There you go. And we do have it on our site, too. If you're on the bottom of all our stories, you can actually contribute to local independent journalism. There you go. We got a little bit from your friend, Keir Starmer.
You're in Easterhouse, you're talking about lifting children out of poverty. That was the big measure in your budget. Otherwise, your budget was chaos.
Well, lifting children out of poverty is a massive measure. 95,000 children in Scotland will be lifted out of poverty because of the measure in the budget, and that's something that Anna Sawar has been campaigning for a very long time. Those children have been living in poverty. It'll be remaining with them for the rest of their lives. They've paid a heavy price. We will lift children out of poverty.
But not before Christmas. Before Christmas.
Just hear me out. That means that a whole generation of children across Scotland will have the best start, have the chance to go as far as their talent will take them to contribute to the economy, and they should never have been held back in this way. So it's a moral mission for me, a political mission. It's massively important in Scotland, and I'm really proud that this is one of the things we've done on the budget. But you say that's the only thing. You just say that's the only thing under the budget. Let me just also point out to you.
You just said they should never have been held back in the first place. 22 months they'll be held back by this under a Labour government.
We have just lifted 95,000 children
You're
out
not doing
of
it till
poverty.
April.
Well, of course we need the time to make the necessary changes, but it's
You've
April
had
next
18
year.
months.
It's as fast as we can possibly do it.
You could have done it in last year's budget.
Just hear me out. 95,000 children lifted out of poverty with one stroke.
Keir. Come on, Keir.
It's so much better with a Scottish accent, isn't it, when you're harassing a politician? You could have done it 18 months ago. You didn't do it. You could see Keir Starmer was like freaking out there. He didn't know what to do.
We're just going to go to the last photo. We're going to leave you with this last photo because we're banging on the door of 2 hours here, actually. It's snowing like crazy here in Kelowna. You can see it in the background there. Snowing like crazy. Traffic's still moving, though. But here's our last image we want to leave you this with. Turns out, while I was in Tokyo, my friend was there as well, or just got there. And he's traveling with Katie Cringe. Is that her name? Katie what? Sorry, did I get that wrong? What was her last name again? Is it Katie Cringe? What's her last name?
It might as well be Katy Perry. She
Katy
sometimes
Perry.
calls herself Katy Perry, but Katy Cringy is better, I think. Yeah.
Katie Cringe, the astronaut, and the actor. The actor and the astronaut. That's pretty good, the actor and the astronaut. He acted like the Prime Minister for 10 years. And his good friend, Chrystia Freeland, said that he wasted 10 years on identity politics and virtue signaling. And now look at that, he is like a rock star. He's dating former girlfriend of Russell Brand. Russell Brand, he's...
And Orlando Bloom, Legolas.
Yeah, so now he's in good company.
Look at the comparison of the skirts, by the way. Maybe that's a low blow, but I just find that quite interesting.
Which way?
Who's the serious political, who's the serious one? Put it that way.
Yeah, poor Justy, hey? Well, again, I was in Tokyo, and Tokyo, absolutely amazing, and Osaka. Clean, saw no crime. I wish my girlfriend was an astronaut, yeah. I wish I was an astronaut. That was my dream as a youth. I went to the career thing, and they said, forget it, kid. I was like, thanks. So I quit school.
That's
high
bloody
school
harsh.
dropout. I was like Ricky. I had my grade 10. I left high school in grade 10, started the mill, working at the mill, pulling on the green chain, pulling boards on the green chain. The day I turned 16, my mom lost her mind, but we needed the money. And I was working full-time 2 months in on the green chain, pulling lumber at a mill called Pope and Talbot. There you go. Loving life large. And astronaut, I like that better, astronaut. Astronaut, yeah. Again, Tokyo, amazing. If you get a chance to go to Tokyo, go there. The food was cheaper than here. No homelessness. And I was walking around every morning at 3 a.m. because I get up early. And I walked around because they didn't want to wake everybody else up, so I had nothing to do instead of just staring at the ceiling. So I went for a walk every morning at 3 a.m. Never felt at jeopardy once. I was emceed an event here in town, 6 o'clock, downtown Kelowna. And I got hassled as I was walking a block and a half.
You can't avoid it, can you? It's not. Well, even last time I was there, and we were in McDonald's or something like that. Somebody was like trying to break into a car just like straight away. It's like, it's absolutely everywhere, isn't it? And it's not just Kelowna. We should just pick on Kelowna. It is a local
Somebody
candidate.
obviously.
Your mic's gone, I think, Matt.
Oh my, we're gonna need to get some. How about now?
Yeah.
How about now? I worked at the Pope and Talbot in Midway. That's correct. Somebody asked about that. Yes, I worked there. Started the day I turned 16. Full boards on the green chain. How's that? Anyway, we're gonna have to get a new budget and get some new mics here. Luckily, we got a couple spares here. But anyway, that's our show for the week. We're here every morning at 9 a.m. If you could help us get this out to more people, that'd be helpful. You know, because if more people listen to this than the CBC, maybe we'd have a more honest and productive government, because right now they don't want to be held accountable. We can see that. They don't want to even be held accountable for anything. So, and the CBC sure isn't holding them to account. CBC, the propaganda arm for Canada, for the Liberals.
And why would they hold them to account? They are their benefactors.
Yeah.
That's where they get money from.
They slop at the trough. They slop at the trough, and like the stories that we cover here, you're not going to find on CBC, because why would they? Because they're embarrassing. They're absolutely embarrassing. I do have John Carpay later this afternoon. John Carpay from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. That show always does extremely well. John Carpay in at 2 p.m. live on Now Media. With that said, we'll see you Monday morning, sharp at 9 a.m., and I'll see you later this afternoon if you want to sit in with John Carpay and myself. That's at 2 p.m. Until then, have a great weekend, and be careful out there if it's snowing and it's cold and all that kind of stuff. And it's all about energy, right? It's all about energy. Print that chart off.
Especially now.
Do that Well Simple thing. You're going to absolutely love it. Well Simple, man. Eastern time, no, Pacific time. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Pacific time, and so Eastern time, that would be 5 p.m. Live around the world, Now Media. All right, that's it. Peace out.
Report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now, local, independent. News you can trust.